Good morning, Haverstock School. This is Miss Fitch-Holland and it's Monday the 22nd of June and I'm here to talk you through the life of Stephen Hawking, who is the focus of our assembly today. We're going to have a look at what he achieved in his life and look at what we can take from that and how he can inspire us in our own lives. So, for those of us who do know a little or want to know a bit more about Stephen Hawking, he was born on the 8th of January 1942 in Oxford, England. As a child and well into his teens, he was considered as lazy and actually a late developer with reading and writing. But it soon became clear to his educators and to his family that he was highly intelligent, and he actually gained a place at Oxford University to study physics. After graduating, he then moved to Cambridge to continue his research in cosmology. So this shows us that those people who thought that he was lazy or a late developer with reading and writing were massively underestimating him. Several of you may feel that you're underestimated or that you've been underestimated at points in your life, but Stephen Hawking has proof that no matter what people think of you, you can always achieve. So these are some of the incredible things that he accomplished in his life. He was the former professor of mathematics at the University of Cambridge, one of the best universities in the world. He was the author of A Brief History of Time, which, if you haven't heard of it or you haven't read it, is an international bestseller and on many, many people's bookshelves. Although not an easy read, it's got some really complicated stuff in there. He was the founder of the Centre for Theoretical Cosmology at Cambridge, and that centre is named after him. He was also an amazing researcher. Most of his career was made up of constant research into different areas of physics, cosmology, and science about the world. He was constantly questioning what was going on and wanted to know more. He was also a member of the US National Academy of Science, and he is regarded and was regarded throughout his lifetime as one of the most brilliant theoretical physicists since Einstein. He's found some incredible discoveries, created amazing equations that he's really, really famous for, and that was all in spite of the difficulties that he faced in his life. In 1964, he was actually diagnosed with a condition called ALS. This happened 2 years after meeting his wife and shortly after his 21st birthday, so he was still incredibly young. And for those of you who haven't heard of ALS, it's a form of motor neurone disease, which over time has severe debilitating effects on most parts of the body and eventually causes complete paralysis. He would eventually become wheelchair bound and dependent on a computerized voice system for communication. Over the period of his life, he would lose sensation in his feet, his legs, from the neck down, and although he could always think as an able-bodied person, he became completely paralysed. This was obviously a devastating disease to be diagnosed with at such a young age, at 21. But as we will go on to see, he did not let this get in the way of anything. He showed incredible courage throughout his entire life. In 1964, he became engaged to marry Jane Wilde. And even though he and she was aware of the potential challenges that definitely lay ahead, such as shortened life expectancy and ultimately physical deterioration of Stephen, they made the decision to go ahead and get married. They loved each other very much, and he himself said that it gave him something to live for. He was always very strong about the fact that he didn't want his disability to get in the way of his dreams and the things that he loved, and he didn't ever want it to be a barrier, nor did he want it to define him. So we're going to watch a short video about Stephen Hawking. Please have a listen.
I fell over and had great difficulty getting up again. My mother realized something was wrong and took me to the doctor. I spent weeks in Bart's hospital and had many tests. They never actually told me what was wrong, but I guessed enough to know it was pretty bad, so I didn't want to ask. In fact, the doctor who diagnosed me washed his hands of me, and I never saw him again. He felt that there was nothing that could be done. At first I became depressed. I seemed to be getting worse pretty rapidly. There didn't seem any point working on my PhD, because I didn't know if I would live long enough to finish it. But then the condition developed more slowly, and I began to make progress in my work. However difficult life may seem, it matters that you don't just give up. And there was also a young woman called Jane, whom I had met at a party. Getting engaged lifted my spirits. Every new day became a bonus, and I began to appreciate everything I did have. I feel a sense of achievement that I have managed to make these contributions, despite having ALS. I have not allowed my disability to stop me doing most things. My motto is there are no boundaries. When we see the Earth from space, we see ourselves as a whole. We see the unity, and not the divisions. We are here together, and we need to live together, with tolerance and respect. It would be an empty universe indeed, if it were not for the people I love, and who love me. But there are other challenges, other big questions which must be answered. How will we feed an ever-growing population? Provide clean water, generate renewable energy, prevent and cure disease, and slow down global climate change. I don't think we will survive another 1,000 years without escaping beyond our fragile planet. We must continue to go into space for the future of humanity. We will better understand our place in the universe. So remember to look up at the stars and not down at your feet. Seize the moment. Act now. Be curious. And however difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at. It matters that you don't just give up. While there's life, there is hope. Be brave, be determined, overcome the odds. It can be done.
So there are so many different things that we can learn there and take into our own lives. He cared about the environment. He was passionate about that we as the human race understand our place in the world, that we act now, as he said, don't just look down at your feet, look up at the stars. We should learn to want more for ourselves and for our planet, and that we should never just give up.
I fell over.
Hawking went on to write many books, but his first and most famous was called A Brief History of Time. He wrote in non-technical terms about the structure, origin, development, and eventual fate of the universe. He wrote about cosmological phenomena such as the Big Bang and black holes. The book was a bestseller, selling more than 10 million copies in 20 years, and had been translated into 35 languages by 2001. Hawking had a great sense of humour and joked that it was the most unread book on so many shelves. As well as showing courage, he showed strength and determination. As his physical condition deteriorated, he went on to actually live many more years than his doctors ever expected. In his 40s, he had to have his voice box removed completely following a horrible bout of pneumonia. This caused him to lose the ability to speak without the aid of a synthetic voice box. This is why when we hear him talking in the video, he's not moving his mouth. He can't actually use his own voice box. It's all computer generated. Towards the end of his life, he was paralysed apart from a cheek muscle that he could move. He needed round-the-clock care, yet he continued to contribute to the fields of cosmology and quantum gravity, demonstrating enormous strength and courage. He stayed positive, caring, and active in the things that he was passionate about. Like many people with disabilities, Professor Hawking has never wanted his disability to define who he really was. He doesn't want it to be what he was known for. He wants his science and his intelligence and his wit to be what he is remembered for. He was an internationally renowned scientist and a popular science writer. He released 2 autobiographies. Like I said earlier, wrote many books. He's written stories for children. He's been awarded 12 honorary degrees and a CBE. He has 3 children and 3 grandchildren and travelled widely and gave public lectures right up until he died. He was an internationally renowned scientist all over the world. He was respected by everyone that met him and continued to work incredibly hard for his entire life. One of the quotes that I think we can take from Hawking and that we can all use in our lives is that however difficult life may seem, there is always something that you can do and succeed at. It matters that you don't just give up. He always made it so clear that we should never just give up. He didn't let his disability get in the way of him, any other boundaries, people disagreeing with him, people doubting him, those people that said he was lazy when he was younger. He didn't listen. He was passionate and he was driven and he wanted to succeed. And he didn't let anything get in his way. Sadly, Hawking died at his home in Cambridge, England, on the 14th of March 2018, at the age of 76. His family stated that he died peacefully. I hope that you've all enjoyed today's assembly and that you can all learn something from the life of Stephen Hawking. Don't just give up.